The trading station Nexus 7 floated in the void between three star systems, a massive wheel of metal and glass where dozens of alien species came to buy, sell, and make deals. Commander Sarah Chun walked through the crowded marketplace, her boots clicking against the polished floor as she passed stalls selling everything from crystalline art to exotic spices that could kill most humans with a single sniff. She was here on official business. The Earth Defense Force needed rare metals for their newest ships, and Nexus 7 was the only place to get them legally. But Sarah had learned long ago that being human in this part of the galaxy meant being constantly underestimated, and she was fine with that. The Korthak merchant she was looking for had set up shop in the station's lower ring, where the artificial gravity was lighter and the air smelled of sulfur. Korthaks were one of the newer species to join the Galactic Trade Union, and they had a reputation for being difficult to work with. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray skin that looked like armor, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dim light. Sarah found the right stall and approached the merchant, a particularly large Korthak whose name tag read Vex Thor the Mighty. He was arguing with a small blue alien who looked terrified, waving all 4 of his arms as he shouted in the trade language that most species use for business. "These crystals are worth 10 times what you offer." Vex Thor roared, his voice echoing through the marketplace. "You insult Vex Thor with your pathetic bid." The blue alien mumbled something and scurried away, leaving his offered payment on the counter. Vex Thor swept it into a pouch with contempt, then noticed Sarah standing nearby. His red eyes narrowed as he looked her up and down, taking in her simple gray uniform and the small sidearm at her hip. "Another weak creature comes to waste Vex Thor's time," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "What does the little human want? Vex Thor has no patience for your kind today." Sarah stepped closer to the counter, ignoring the way other aliens moved away from the increasingly angry merchant. She had dealt with bullies before, and Korthaks were just bigger versions of the same thing. "I'm looking for refined tritium crystals," she said calmly. "I need 50 kilograms, highest quality." Vex Thor laughed, a sound like boulders rolling down a mountain. 50 kilograms. You humans think you can afford such things? Vex Thor's tritium is worth more than your entire pathetic ship. How much? Sarah asked, pulling out a credit chip from her pocket. The Korthak's eyes blazed brighter. 100,000 credits. And that is only because Vex Thor finds your ignorance amusing. Sarah nodded and placed the credit chip on the counter. Done. When can you deliver? Vex Thor stared at the chip, then at Sarah, then back at the chip. His mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. You have this much? Impossible. Humans are poor creatures who live on one small world. We get by, Sarah said with a slight smile. So about that delivery? The Korthak snatched up the credit chip and inserted it into his scanner. His eyes went wide when he saw the balance. Then he looked at Sarah with something that might have been respect. The tritium will be ready in 2 days. Vex Thor will have it transported to your ship personally. Thank you, Sarah said, turning to leave. But Vex Thor wasn't done yet. Wait, human, he called after her. Vex Thor is curious. How does your weak species afford such wealth? What trickery do you use? Sarah paused and looked back at him. No trique. We just work hard. Vex Thor's laugh was bitter this time. Work hard? Vex Thor has conquered 12 worlds. Vex Thor has led armies across the galaxy. What work could soft humans do that earns more than a warrior's spoils? Sarah's smile widened just a fraction. We build things. Build things. Vex Thor's voice rose to a roar that made several nearby aliens flinch. What could humans build that Vex Thor could not simply take by force? Sarah looked around the trading station at the lights and the air recyclers and the artificial gravity generators that kept them all alive in the cold vacuum of space. Then she looked back at Vex Thor, her smile never wavering. Everything, she said softly, and walked away. 2 days later, Sarah was inspecting the tritium crystals in her ship's cargo hold when Vex Thor arrived with his delivery crew. The Korthak warrior had brought 6 of his soldiers with him, each one armed and wearing battle armor that looked like it had seen real combat. They stomped up the loading ramp of Sarah's modest cargo vessel like they owned the place. Human, Vex Thor boomed as he entered the hold. Vex Thor has brought your crystals as promised. But Vex Thor has questions that demand answers. Sarah looked up from the crystal container she was examining. The tritium was perfect, pure blue light that would power Earth's new defense grid for years to come. The crystals look good. What questions? Vexthor gestured for his soldiers to spread out around the cargo hold. They moved with practiced precision, blocking the exits and creating what any military person would recognize as an intimidation formation. Vexthor has made inquiries about your people, human. Your species controls only one small world, yet you have credits to spend like a major empire. This troubles Vexthor greatly. Why does it trouble you? Sarah asked, still examining the crystals. She seemed completely unbothered by the armed aliens surrounding her. Because Vexthor's suspect deception, the warrior roared. Perhaps humans steal their wealth. Perhaps humans are pirates and liars who trick honest merchants. One of the Korthak soldiers stepped closer to Sarah, his massive hand resting on his weapon. Perhaps this human should explain where such credits come from, or face the consequences of Vexthor's displeasure. Sarah finally looked up from the crystals. Her brown eyes were calm as she met Vexthor's burning red gaze. You want to know how humans make money? Yes. Tell Vexthor the truth, or Vexthor will take these crystals back, and keep your payment as compensation for being deceived. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, follow me. She led them out of the cargo hold and up to her ship's bridge. It was a small space designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Sarah sat down at her captain's chair and activated the main display screen. Computer, show our current location and the surrounding systems. A three-dimensional map appeared in the air above them, showing Nexus 7 and the nearby star systems. Vexthor and his soldiers crowded around to look at it, their massive forms filling the small bridge. This is where we are now, Sarah said, pointing to the trading station. And this is Earth, my home. A small blue dot appeared on the map, several jumps away through hyperspace. Vexthor snorted. One small world, as Vexthor said. What does this prove? Computer, expand the map to show all human settlements. The map zoomed out, and suddenly it was filled with thousands of blue dots. They spread across dozens of star systems, connected by shipping lanes and communication networks. Vexthor's eyes widened as more and more dots appeared. Impossible, he whispered. The Galactic Trade Union records show humans control only one world. Sarah smiled. The trade union only counts worlds where species originated. But humans don't conquer planets like warriors do. We build space stations. We construct orbital habitats. We hollow out asteroids and turn them into cities. We build everything we need instead of taking it from others. She touched another control, and the map changed to show population numbers. The Korthak soldiers gasped as they saw the statistics. Humanity had spread across 47 star systems, with over 2 billion people living in artificial habitats. Each one of those stations produces something, Sarah continued. Raw materials, manufactured goods, scientific research, entertainment, art. We trade with each other constantly. And when we trade with other species, we have the combined economic power of all those settlements behind us. Vexthor stared at the display in growing amazement and anger. But this makes no sense. Why does the trade union not know of this? Why do humans hide their true strength? We don't hide anything, Sarah said. We just answer the questions we were asked. The trade union asked how many worlds humans control, and we told them, 1. Earth. They never asked about our space habitats. This is deception by omission. Vexthor roared. Vexthor does not like being made a fool of. Sarah's expression grew serious. No one made you a fool. You made assumptions. You assumed that because we don't conquer planets, we must be weak. You assumed that because we seem peaceful, we must be poor. You never bothered to ask the right questions. The lead Korthak soldier raised his weapon. Perhaps Vexthor should teach humans a lesson about respect. But Vexthor held up a hand to stop him. The warrior was staring at the display with new understanding in his red eyes. Wait, if humans build all these things, if humans have such wealth and numbers, why do you not have mighty fleets? Where are your warrior ships? Sarah's smile returned, but there was something different about it now. Something that made even a massive Korthak shift uncomfortably. Who says we don't? Before Vexthor could respond to Sarah's question, alarms began blaring throughout the trading station. The ship's communication system crackled to life, with an urgent message in the trade union's standard language. All vessels, this is Nexus 7 Control. We have multiple unidentified ships approaching from hyperspace. All civilian traffic must remain docked until the threat assessment is complete. Sarah touched her control panel and brought up the station's external cameras on the main screen. In the distance, ships' signatures were appearing as vessels dropped out of hyperspace. But these weren't the sleek, elegant designs favored by most trade union species. These ships were angular, brutal-looking vessels covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Gavkar raiders, Vex Thor growled, his earlier anger forgotten. Vex Thor recognizes those ship designs. They're slavers and pirates banned from all civilized systems. The communications system crackled again. This is Warlord Skantar of the Gavkar Legion. Nexus 7 is now under our control. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your pathetic station and the sale of your crews into slavery. Sarah frowned as she counted the enemy ships on her screen. 23 vessels, each one heavily armed and built for combat. The trading station's defenses were minimal. Nexus 7 relied on its neutral status and the protection of the trade union fleet, but the nearest patrol was days away. Computer, open a channel to station control, Sarah said. A nervous voice answered immediately. This is Control. Commander Chun, you need to prepare for evacuation. We cannot defend against a force this size. How many civilians are on the station? Sarah asked. Nearly 8,000 beings from 47 different species. The evacuation ships can only carry half that number, and the raiders will be here in 30 minutes. Vex Thor moved closer to Sarah's chair. Human, Vex Thor suggests you flee while you can. The Gavkar show no mercy to those they capture. Your small cargo ship cannot stand against their fleet. Sarah was quiet for a moment, studying the tactical display. The Gavkar ships were moving in standard pirate formation, a loose cluster designed to surround their target and prevent escape. They clearly expected no real resistance from Trading Station. Computer sent a priority message to Earth Defense Force Command. Use emergency encryption Alpha 7. Message transmitted, Commander. Vex Thor's eyes widened. You are military? Vex Thor thought you were merely a traitor. I'm a traitor, Sarah said calmly. But I'm also a reserve commander in the Earth Defense Force. Every human civilian ship is registered with our military. We all serve when needed. The Korthax soldier who had threatened her earlier stepped forward. One small cargo ship cannot fight an entire raider fleet. You will only get yourself killed. Sarah looked at him with that same unsettling smile. You're right. One ship can't fight a fleet. Good thing I'm not alone. She touched her controls again, and the display changed to show a different view of space. At first, there was nothing but stars and darkness. Then, one by one, ships began to appear as their stealth systems deactivated. The court hacks stared in amazement as more and more human vessels materialized around Nexus 7. They weren't large ships, mostly frigates and destroyers, with a few cruisers mixed in. But there were dozens of them, appearing from every direction like ghosts materializing from the void. Impossible, Vexto whispered. Where did they come from? How did they arrive so quickly? They were already here, Sarah explained. Human ships patrol all the major trade routes. We protect our merchants and our allies, even when they don't know we're there. The communication system activated again, but this time it was a human voice with a crisp military tone. This is Captain Rodriguez of the EDF Vigilance. Gavkar vessels, you are in violation of galactic trade union law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Raider Warlord's response was predictable. Humans, Skantar is not afraid of your tiny ships. The Gavkar Legion has conquered systems across the Outer Rim. We will crush you and sell your crews alongside the station dwellers. Sarah shook her head sadly. They never learn. Learn what? Vex Thor asked. That humans don't build ships just to look pretty. The first shots came from the Gavkar fleet, massive plasma bolts designed to disable and capture rather than destroy. The human ships scattered like startled fish, their smaller size and superior engines allowing them to dance between the heavy weapons fire. Then, the humans began firing back. Vex Thor had seen space battles before. As a warrior, he understood tactics and firepower. But What he saw now defied everything he knew about fleet combat. The human ships moved with impossible coordination, like they were sharing a single mind. They struck at the raiders from multiple angles simultaneously, their weapons targeting specific systems with surgical precision. Within minutes, 3 Gavkar ships were drifting helplessly, their engines and weapons destroyed but their life support intact. The remaining raiders tried to form a defensive formation, but the human ships flowed around them like water, always striking where the enemy was weakest. How do they move like that? One of the Korthak soldiers asked in amazement. It's like they know where every ship will be before it gets there. Sarah was watching the battle with professional interest. Quantum communication networks. Every human ship is connected to every other human ship in real time. When you fight one of us, you fight all of us. The battle was over in less than an hour. 15 Gavkar ships were disabled and drifting. The remaining 8 had surrendered rather than face destruction. Not a single human ship had been seriously damaged. Vexthor stood in silence for a long time, watching the human fleet secure their prisoners and begin rescue operations for the disabled raiders. Finally, he turned to Sarah with something that might have been respect in his burning eyes. Vexthor understands now why humans do not need to conquer worlds, he said quietly. You have something far more powerful than warriors or weapons. What's that? Sarah asked. You have each other. 3 weeks after the battle at Nexus 7, Vexthor found himself in an unexpected position. He was sitting in the guest quarters of the Earth Defense Force ship Vigilance, being treated not as a prisoner or a threat, but as an honored guest. The humans had invited him to visit their home system to see firsthand how their society worked. Captain Rodriguez, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and steady eyes, had personally escorted him through several human installations. What Vexthor saw challenged everything he thought he knew about civilization and power. This cannot be real, he muttered as they toured the orbital shipyard above Luna, Earth's moon. The facility stretched for dozens of kilometers in every direction, a maze of construction bays and manufacturing centers. Hundreds of ships were being built simultaneously, not just military vessels, but cargo haulers, research ships, colony transports, and even luxury liners for wealthy aliens who wanted to experience human hospitality. It's real, Captain Rodriguez assured him. This is just one of our major shipyards. We have facilities like this in 37 systems. Vexthor watched human workers moving through the zero-gravity environment with practiced ease. They wore simple work suits and used tools that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced manufacturing systems he was used to seeing. But their productivity was incredible. Why do your people work so hard? He asked. Among the court hacks, only slaves labor with such dedication. Free warriors take what they need through conquest. Captain Rodriguez smiled. We work because we choose to. Because building something makes us proud. Because creating is more satisfying than taking. But surely your leaders must force this productivity? Surely there are punishments for those who do not contribute. Come with me, the captain said. I want to show you something. They took a shuttle to the planet below, landing at a spaceport outside a city called New Geneva. Vexthor had expected to see the usual signs of a hierarchical society: guards, walls, segregated areas for different classes. Instead, he found himself in a bustling metropolis where humans of all ages and backgrounds moved freely through clean, well-maintained streets. This is our planetary government center, Captain Rodriguez explained as they walked toward a large building with glass walls and open courtyards. Anyone can enter. Anyone can speak with their representatives. Anyone can propose new laws or challenge existing ones. Vexthor's confusion was growing. But how do your rulers maintain order? How do they ensure obedience without fear? Our rulers don't maintain order, a new voice said behind them. We maintain it ourselves. They turned to see Sarah Chun approaching, now wearing civilian clothes instead of her military uniform. She had taken shore leave to visit her family and had volunteered to continue Vexthor's education about human society. Sarah, Captain Rodriguez smiled. I thought you were spending time with your parents. I was. But they wanted to meet our Korthak guest. They're curious about other cultures. Sarah looked at Vexthor. Would you like to have dinner with a human family? It might help you understand us better. Vexthor found himself in a modest home in the suburbs, sitting at a kitchen table with Sarah's parents, her younger brother, and her elderly grandmother. The house was comfortable, but not luxurious, the home of people who worked for a living but were not wealthy. "So you're a warrior from the Korthak Empire," Sarah's father said as he passed a bowl of something called pasta. "What's that like? Do you enjoy fighting?" The directness of the question surprised Vexthor. Among his own people, such personal inquiries were considered rude unless you held superior rank. Vexthor has known nothing but warfare since childhood. It is the way of the Korthak. The strong lead, the weak follow, all serve the Empire. Sarah's grandmother, a tiny woman with white hair and sharp eyes, leaned forward. "That sounds lonely." Lonely? Vexthor didn't understand. Fighting all the time, taking what you need, always watching for threats. When do you get to relax? When do you get to enjoy life? When do you get to make friends? Vexthor thought about this for a moment. Korthak warriors do not have friends. We have allies and enemies. We have superiors and subordinates. Friendship is a weakness that enemies can exploit. Sarah's younger brother, a teenager named David, looked shocked. "But what do you do for fun? Do you have hobbies? Do you play games or read books or watch movies?" Vexthor trains for combat. Vexthor studies military tactics. Vexthor maintains his weapons and armor. These things prepare Vexthor for survival. The family exchanged glances. Sarah's mother spoke gently. "It sounds like you've never had a chance to discover what you actually enjoy doing. What makes you happy besides fighting?" Vexthor found himself unable to answer. The concept of doing something purely for enjoyment was foreign to him. Everything in Korthak society served a purpose related to warfare or survival. After dinner, David insisted on showing Vexthor his room, which was filled with books, art supplies, and electronic devices for entertainment. "This is my music collection," the teenager said proudly, activating a device that filled the room with complex harmonies. "And these are my paintings. I'm not very good yet, but I'm learning." "Why do you waste time on such things?" Vexthor asked, genuinely puzzled. "These skills have no military value." David laughed. "Not everything has to have military value. I paint because it's beautiful. I play music because it makes me feel good. I read books because I like stories about other worlds and other people." Vexthor picked up one of the paintings, a landscape showing Earth's mountains at sunset. The colors were vibrant and peaceful, nothing like the harsh, practical decorations in Korthak buildings. "You created this? With your own hands?" "Yeah, took me 3 weeks. Want to see my latest one?" That night, Vexthor lay in the guest room and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in his adult life, he found himself questioning everything he had been taught about strength and weakness, about the proper way to live, about what it meant to be successful. The humans he had met were not warriors in any sense he understood. They were soft, emotional creatures who wasted time on art and music and friendship. They shared their resources freely, helped strangers without expecting payment, and chose their leaders through talking instead of fighting. By every measure he knew, they should have been weak. They should have been easy prey for stronger species. But they had built something that no amount of conquest could create, a civilization where people wanted to contribute, where innovation flourished, where problems were solved through cooperation instead of force. And that civilization had made them rich and powerful in ways that Vexthor was only beginning to understand. 6 months later, Vexthor stood before the Grand War Council of the Korthak Empire, trying to explain what he had learned during his time with the humans. The massive chamber was filled with the Empire's greatest warriors, their red eyes glowing in the dim light as they listened to his report with growing disbelief and anger. "Impossible," roared General Thakmar, the Empire's supreme military commander. "You speak of weakness as if it were strength. You describe cowards as if they were mighty. The humans deceived you with their soft words and false friendship." Vexthor had expected this reaction. He had once shared their certainty about the superiority of the warrior's path. "Vexthor speaks only truth, General. The humans are not weak. They're different. Their strength comes from cooperation, not conquest." "Cooperation?" Supreme Warlord Carthax rose from his throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. "You have been corrupted by alien poison. True strength comes from the blade and the fist. The Korthak Empire has conquered 47 worlds through pure military might. And humans have built settlements in 47 star systems without conquering a single world, Vexthor replied calmly. They have created wealth that exceeds our entire empire. They have technology that makes their small fleet more powerful than our Grand Armada. They have achieved through building what we have failed to achieve through breaking. The War Council erupted in angry roars. Several warriors stepped forward with their weapons drawn, but the Supreme Warlord raised his hand for silence. You speak heresy, Vexthor, but you were once a loyal warrior of the Empire. Explain yourself. How do these soft creatures threaten the mighty Korthak? Vexthor activated a holographic projector he had brought back from human space. The same stellar map that Sarah had shown him appeared in the air above the council chamber, displaying the vast network of human installations and trade routes. They do not threaten us through war, Supreme Warlord. They threaten us through irrelevance. He manipulated the display to show economic data, population figures, technological advancement rates. The numbers told a story that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The humans grow stronger every year while we remain the same. They build new habitats, develop new technologies, forge new alliances. Meanwhile, we spend our resources on maintaining control over worlds that hate us. We fight rebellions instead of pursuing progress. We conquer territories that cost more to hold than they produce in value. General Thakmar snarled. Better to rule than to serve. Better to take than to beg. The Korthak way is the warrior's way. The Korthak way is leading us to extinction, Vexthor said quietly. Other species are beginning to form defensive alliances with the humans. They offer protection, trade partnerships, technological exchange. Soon, we will find ourselves surrounded by enemies who no longer fear our military might. He changed the display again, showing recent intelligence about the growing network of mutual defense treaties between humanity and other species. The Galactic Trade Union was quietly restructuring itself around human economic power and military protection. The humans do not need to defeat us in battle, Vexthor continued. They will simply make us irrelevant. Who will trade with the Korthak Empire when they can trade with human settlements that offer better prices and guaranteed security? Who will ally with us when the humans offer mutual benefits instead of threats of conquest? Supreme Warlord Karthex studied the display with growing concern. He was a brutal warrior, but he was not stupid. The implications of what Vexthor was showing them were clear. What do you propose? He asked finally. We must change. Not our strength, not our courage, but our methods. We must learn from the humans. We must build instead of only taking. We must offer partnerships instead of only demanding tribute. The War Council exploded in outrage. Warriors shouted challenges and accusations. Several drew their weapons and demanded the right to settle the matter through combat. But Vexthor stood unmoved in the center of the chaos, no longer the same being who had first encountered a small human trader at Nexus 7. Silence. The Supreme Warlord's roar echoed through the chamber. When quiet returned, he looked directly at Vexthor. You ask us to abandon everything that makes us Korthak. You ask us to become weak like the humans. Vexthor asks nothing, came the calm reply. Vexthor merely reports what he has seen. The choice belongs to the Council. And if we refuse? If we maintain our traditional ways? Vexthor thought of Sarah Chun, of her quiet confidence when faced with his threats and bluster. He thought of her family's simple kindness, of David's paintings, of Captain Rodriguez's patient explanations. He thought of the human fleet emerging from stealth to protect strangers without being asked. Then, in 50 years, the Korthak Empire will be a historical footnote. A few museum displays showing how a once proud species chose extinction over evolution. The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the holographic projector displaying humanity's growing influence across known space. Finally, Supreme Warlord Karthex spoke. If we were to consider such changes, if we were to explore this path you described, who would teach us these human methods? Vexthor smiled for the first time since returning to Korthak space. Vexthor believes the humans would be willing to help. They seem to enjoy teaching others how to build instead of break. And you trust them? Vexthor learned something important from the humans, he replied. Trust is not about knowing that others cannot hurt you. Trust is about knowing that they choose not to, even when they could. He gestured to the display, where human ships could be seen patrolling trade routes and protecting species that had no formal alliance with Earth. The humans could have destroyed our raiders at Nexus 7. Instead, they disabled the ships and rescued the crews. They could have demanded tribute for their protection. Instead, they ask only for fair trade. They could have used their growing power to establish an empire. Instead, they build partnerships. The Supreme Warlord was quiet for a long time, studying the data and considering the implications. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that every warrior in the chamber recognized. Send a message to the humans. Tell them that the Korthak Empire wishes to discuss mutual cooperation. Later, as Vexthor prepared the diplomatic communication, he found himself remembering Sarah's word from their first meeting. We build things. Now he understood what she had really meant. Humans didn't just build ships and stations and habitats. They built relationships. They built trust. They built a future where strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to create. And perhaps with their help, the Korthak could learn to build something too.